As much as Diana would have loved for Tuki to stay in Idonyr, at least for a while, the Yearning did call her away eventually. The krauven spent the remainder of that day in the small town, mostly because the grateful townsfolk were not in any rush to let her leave. A whole host of people wanted the chance to personally express their gratitude, and some even offered to reward her in some capacity. Diana had fought to hold in her laughs as Tuki, humbled to a fault, tried and failed to refuse many of the offerings. She was even successful in turning down a few of them, things she had no use for or could not reasonably carry with her on the road. Tuki stayed in Diana's house one more night, at Diana's insistence, as she walked back her earlier statement that the room would be free for only one. Tuki had earned another night, if nothing else. And when the sun rose, so too did the announcements go through the town from the mansion. Tobias himself did not advance to speak on the matter, humiliated as he was, but one of his guards. Diana had been half expecting the man to not honor his word, but he did. All of his obnoxious tax hikes were repealed, or at least heavily decreased. Repayments would take longer to organize, but the soldier had said that Tobias promised to work toward that as well. He bloody better, Diana thought, or he'll have to answer to all of us, and his father. It wasn't long after that announcement that Tuki arrived in the bakery. She was fully dressed in her travel gear now, and Diana knew it was time. She smiled softly. So, time to say goodbye, is it? She asked softly. Tuki nodded. Yes. I can't stay put any longer, she said before looking down. Even if I'd really like to stay. Diana sighed and stepped out from behind the counter to give Tuki a friendly hug. I know. No regrets, you hear? Said it yourself, didn't you? Can't ignore your yearning. Tuki laughed quietly and awkwardly returned the hug. No, I can't. Thank you for your understanding. I'm not rightly sure I can understand, Diana replied, pulling out of the hug and giving Tuki an affectionate pat on the shoulder. I ain't no krauven, but I do know it'd be wrong of me to keep you here if the road's calling. I ain't your master, just a friend you met on your way. Tuki looked down for a moment, her beak clacking quietly as she fished for something to say. In the end, she lifted her eyes to meet Diana's, and when she spoke again, it wasn't in the common tongue. A string of chirps, whistles, and trills filled the bakery, lingering pleasantly in Diana's ears before fading into silence. Diana blinked. What was that? Tuki's smile grew. I'll tell you the next time I'm passing through, she said. Diana stared at her a moment, then put on a large grin. You cocky little... Ah! I see what you're doing. Now you gotta pass through again, don't you? Tuki nodded. Something like that, I suppose. Diana chuckled heartily and pat Tuki on the shoulder again. Well, you just take care out there, you hear me? I don't want to be hearing it some years down the line that you went and got yourself killed. Tuki's smile took on a sad quality. I'll do my best. And find whatever it is that blasted Yearning wants from you, eh? Diana pressed, this time poking Tuki on the tip of the beak, making her briefly go cross-eyed. And if you can, maybe drag it back here, so I can give it a piece of my mind for wearing you so thin. Tuki giggled and scratched the tip of her beak. I'm not sure it works like that, but I'll try. Try hard, Diana instructed before taking a step back. Now go on. Get out of here. I've never been good at these long goodbyes, mostly because once I get all snappy I can't shut the hell up. And I've held you long enough. Tuki laughed again. Then she took a step back into the frame of the exit. Right. Goodbye, Diana. And thank you. My pleasure, girl, Diana responded. Tuki nodded her head down into a respectful bow. Then she turned, walked out the door, and was gone. Diana stared at the empty space where the krauven had been. She'd taken a deep breath, then returned to her place behind the counter. The day was only just getting started. The day felt longer than usual. People passed through Idonyr all the time, but it was rare that any of them made such an impression or became such quick friends with her. But Tuki had made that impression, and as quickly as she had come, she was gone. The bittersweet feeling lingered, and Diana wound up closing the bakery early. That night, she stepped into the room Tuki had slept in, just to make sure that everything was where it should be. Tuki had promised to take care of Lucia's room, but Diana just had to be sure. Pale ring light and the last vestiges of the sun's golden glow filtered in through the drapes, leaving everything bathed in an almost dreamlike luminance. Diana's eyes roved over the space. All of it was as it was supposed to be. Nothing was missing, nothing was out of place. But there was one thing that had been added, and Diana had to smile and laugh when she saw it. A single black tail feather resting lightly on the pillow.